2010's Tron Legacy is an underrated visual and audio delight. The film, a follow-up to one of the greatest cult classics of all time, 1982's Tron, is an ambitious cinematic experience that is heavily flawed. Despite the fact that Tron Legacy is a legacy sequel, it was highly divided amongst critics and would underwhelm at the box office, making it a perfect choice for Lost and Found. The film kicks off in 1989 with Kevin Flynn, played by Jeff Bridges, now as the CEO of Encom. Unfortunately, he goes missing, and 20 years later, we meet his son, Sam. Sam is now the primary shareholder in the company, but pranks it yearly as his way of showing disinterest towards the future of Encom.
Do I really look like I'm ready to run a Fortune 500 company?
Alan, played by the returning Bruce Boxleitner, shares with Sam that Flynn's pager beeped at the arcade. Sam, investigating the arcade, stumbles onto the grid. Here he must save his dad from the tyrannical Clue and the potential danger Clue possesses to the rest of the world.
That our world is a cage no more. For at this moment, the key to the next frontier is finally in our possession.
Tron Legacy is a legacy sequel amongst an absolute wave of them. Legacy sequel is basically a cast of returning characters we haven't seen in, say, a decade, with a lot of the movie built up on nostalgia because everyone loves to remember when times didn't suck. Hint, they always kinda did. Hollywood is filled to the brim with legacy sequels, films like Ghostbusters Afterlife, Creed, Jurassic World, Mad Max Fury Road, Blade Runner 2049, Dumb and Dumberer, the list goes on. In fact, Tron Legacy's director, Joseph Kosinski's latest film, Top Gun Maverick, is, you guessed it, a legacy sequel.
What a twist!
In fact, a lot of parallels can actually be drawn up between Top Gun Maverick and Tron Legacy, with a lot of shared themes like father-son dynamic and age catching up to you. A concerted effort went into the sequel in 2005, with Walt Disney hiring on writers Brian Klugman and Lee Sternthal, with Kosinski coming aboard 2 years later. Admittedly, he wasn't too keen on the idea, but was won over by the original concept. Kosinski was big on a Matrix-like concept for Legacy and filmed a high-concept short for the studio, who later greenlit the idea.
So I proposed the idea of creating a 2 or 3 minute piece, kind of like a mini trailer for a movie that didn't exist yet.
Tron Legacy would get a massive budget of $170 million and shot over the span of 2 months. Over 10 different visual effects companies worked on building the world of Tron Legacy. Kosinski had a big hand in designing the world as a graduate of Columbia's architecture school. The production pushed for a lot of themes, including various references to religious archetypes. Ultimately, Kosinski wanted the film's universal theme to be finding a human connection in the digital world, with an emphasis on the relationship between Sam and Flynn.
Oh man, I'd like to see that.
You will.
The human connection would go beyond the script, as Kosinski was big about the world having an intangible feel. A lot of sets were built to create the world of the grid, with the production collaborating with tons of automotive and architecture design people. Tron Legacy is a fascinating movie.
Wow!
On the surface, there's a lot to love. The world and design of the grid is outstanding, despite the fact that Disney doesn't present the movie in the highest quality possible with no Dolby Atmos, no Dolby Vision, or even 4K.
My God, why?
It still has some jaw-dropping qualities to it. The collaboration of both special effects with real-world designs makes things feel far more intangible than something like this would seem, topped off by the addition of Daft Punk, who did the orchestrated music as well as added their own trademarked electrical sound. Everything becomes in sync and works beautifully as a visual and audio treat. Jeff Bridges is always good, and that isn't surprising here as he comes back as Flynn. He has this bit of this Neo, the one element to him that makes him pretty mysterious and powerful. it just isn't entirely explored. Garrett Hedlund, who plays his son, Sam, is fine.
Hey, kiddo. Lost track of time.
Wouldn't that be something?
But does devolve a bit into generic action man. Unfortunately, the problem with the film that I originally had still remains.
It is what it is. My God, this is so frustrating.
The story continues to be a bit of a weak driving point, and the narrative just doesn't work for me as much as it should. This is where I think Joseph Kosinski, along with a different group of writers, improved with Top Gun Maverick. Granted, Maverick isn't a perfect film, but the adjustments to the narrative helped make it a much more engaging one. Maverick just told a lot more cohesive, engaging narrative around the idea of getting old, and the semi-father-son relationship that blooms between Rooster and Maverick. The bits with the jet planes, the dogfights, and all that is just there. Hell, the movie doesn't even have a bad guy, it's just some country. Tron Legacy is trying to balance both of these, while also adding in the elements of what the grid can bring for humanity.
Disease, history, science, philosophy, every idea man has ever had about the universe up for grabs.
As well as the addition of Quorra, played by Olivia Wilde. She is an ISO, a naturally occurring part of the grid, with the ability to solve a lot of the natural problems in the world.
The ISOs shattered it. The possibilities of their root code, their digital DNA.
It's a needless addition to the script that just doesn't mesh well with the narrative for me. The entire plot should have been driven by Sam finding his dad and going through the relationship of a son who didn't have a father and adjusting to having one in this Matrix-like simulator. Instead, the narrative gets bogged down on what's important. Sam saving his dad, or what the ISO can mean to humanity. It lacks the thorough attention to detail that Maverick had, and probably could have had an additional draft of the script.
No wife. No kids. Nobody to mourn you when you burn in.
Ironically, I was editing the review and realized I failed to mention a few tidbits of important information. First, I think 1982's Tron is fine. It is certainly a product of the time and hasn't exactly aged well. Sorry, Pop Tot.
There's another beam!
It's too far.
Second, the de-aging on Jeff Bridges is a bit whatever. For the most part, it doesn't bother me because it's on the grid, and therefore the uncanny valley it represents feels fitting to what the universe is trying to do. However, that notion doesn't exactly explain the first scene where you see Flynn talking to Sam.
We're always on the same team.
Finally, Tron Ares, the third film in the series, is on the way, with the production slated for summer of 2023. I have mixed feelings about this third film because the director, Joseph Kosinski, is not returning.
The director, Joe Kosinski, is a designer and an architect, and he comes at this film with a unique perspective that really creates something new.
Tron Legacy sits at a 51% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is interesting because I think the movie is the definition of fine.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
It does so much well and really builds this creative world that I wish we got more time in. The music is incredible. And some of the action scenes are filmed surprisingly well. Yes, you can absolutely tell it was a part of the 3D craze, but it doesn't beat you over the head with, look, it's coming right at you in 3D. For me, it just lacks the emotional core and failed to resonate with me on a higher level. Regardless, it's still a fun treat for a weekend watch and fully worth revisiting. Thanks for watching, please subscribe, check out this video here if you want another movie recommendation, and I'll see you on the next one.